wanna scream, scream with me. Moments like this never last.
So I want to tell all of you a story, and it's about the first time the FBI came to investigate me for being a right-wing radical. And this happened in 2014. And that wasn't long ago, but it feels like a long time ago because the country has changed so much in the past 4 years. You know, back then, there was a lot of stuff going on that was really sort of scary because it was new to America. You had Obama trying to push America as far to the left as he possibly could in his latter years. And because of that, we were seeing all these sort of SJW stunts, and we had never seen stuff like that before. You know, now if you see a feminist fight club or, you know, trans kids modeling at a fashion show, that's nothing new. We were like, muh, you know, but back then it was shocking. So they were pushing the culture thing, and there was stuff like the gay marriage issue, which Obama had been opposed to, and California even voted against gay marriage. The majority of the country did not want it. Even liberal California didn't want it, but they pushed it through anyway. And so there's a lot of stuff like that going on the cultural front. And then on top of that, there was a lot of very authoritarian things that Obama was doing to push the country to the left. He was using the DHS to teach police forces that, you know, jihadis weren't the enemy, that it was patriot groups and sovereign citizens that were the real threat to America, not groups like MS-13 or Al-Qaeda. You had him using the IRS to target Tea Party groups and take away their tax-exempt status. You had him using the EPA and BalM to go after different landowners and take their land away. And that was what caused Bundy Ranch and the Oregon standoff. I mean, those kind of abuses were just everywhere at that time. And it was scary. I mean, like I said, it was very heavy-handed, and people died because of it. And people thought that we were going to have a civil war if things didn't change. But luckily, we got a break with Trump, and, you know, we're starting to turn things around now. Well, my story about the FBI coming to visit me and investigate me is because of one of these cultural events that happened. And I'm talking about the Clock Boy incident. For those of you who don't know, let me just tell you about Clock Boy. Alright, so the Clock Boy. A long time ago, in a place very far away called the Great Satan, lived a little Muslim man. And that little Muslim man, his name was Muhammad. And Muhammad had but two dreams in life. One, to own a little goat. And two, he wanted to be a great engineer, to build rockets that he could launch at the Hamdallah Jews in Israel. So, Muhammad, he went to school. And one day, Muhammad decided that he would build a great science project to make all the infidels convert to Islam. So, he went to the store, and he bought a silver briefcase, much like the ones you see in movies used to make bombs. Then he bought some red and green wires, much like the ones you see in the movies used to make bombs. Then he bought a little clock that counted down, just like the ones you see in movies used to make bombs. He put it all together and brought it to his classroom. And he showed it to his professor. And he said, "Look, professor, this is my little clock." And all the children, these infidels, they run out screaming. And the professor, he says, "Muhammad, how dare you? You bring great shame upon me." And Muhammad, he was smited by the infidels. And he was forced to return to Turkestan. And so that's what happened to Muhammad. Anyway, the guy built a clock. It looked like a bomb. It was a big stunt, right? This is stuff the left do all the time. They pretend somebody got their veil pulled off, or they pull a stunt like this, and then they bring the outrage police in. But back then, it was really a new thing. We weren't seeing stuff like this all the time, so people were freaking out. Everybody was saying how racist Texas is. But if you ever saw this clock, I mean, it looked just like a bomb. There was no way it was not made to look like a bomb. And it turns out Muhammad's parents, yeah, they just happened to be members of all these different Muslim extremist groups and also some leftist groups. So you know it was all staged. Anyway. Alright, so that's what happened with Muhammad. The kid built a clock. It looked like a bomb. There was no way anybody would have thought that this clock was not made to look like a bomb once they saw it. But nobody saw it at first, so everybody just jumped and rallied around this kid and said, "Oh, Texas is so racist. They hate Muslims." Well, it turns out the kids' parents were Muslim extremists, members of all these jihadi groups, and also far left communists who were members of Democratic Party organizing groups. So, the whole thing was a stunt. And we see those kinds of stunts now where somebody says their hijab got pulled off and it didn't. But back then it was something new. And it was really shocking, and people were naive to that kind of stuff. So they backed up the kid instead of the state of Texas. And so, anyway, at this time, I was down in El Salvador. And when we go down to El Salvador, we go for about 2 or 3 months at a time. And our place down there is right in the middle of the city on a very busy street. If we're not at the beach, that is, because we have a place down there at the beach too. But yeah, it's in the middle of a busy street. And so I don't like the city. I don't like going out. It's dangerous. And my wife's family is sort of a political family there, so they always have to have security guards and stuff. So I don't want to go out much. I get nervous down there. Anyway, so I'm in there, I'm bored, so I start trolling people. And I did some epic trolling. I mean, when I'm down there, I get creative. And so I was like trolling every member of parliament in Britain, sending them memes about refugees. I was sending people memes at different universities, and it was making the news. I mean, I was trolling people so hard, it was like causing outrage events at some of these universities. And I even got some guys to put bacon on mosques, which was hilarious. Anyway, so Muhammad thing comes out. I see this and I was thinking automatically, I was like, oh yeah, I got to do something with this. So it was New Year's in El Salvador. And down there you could buy these big half sticks of dynamite. And I'm not talking about the M80s with the little firecracker in them. I'm talking about huge explosives. And so I bought a bunch of these half sticks of dynamite and I put them around my chest like this. Then I took my cell phone. And let's say this is my cell phone. It had the timer function. So I put the timer function on, put it right here. Then I took my headphones, and I put the headphones on a wire like this. And I made it look like a real bomb. And then I took a picture of that, and I looked like a suicide bomber. And under the picture I wrote, "Look, Mom, I made a clock." And it was hilarious, right? So I used that meme every time somebody would talk about the clock boy. I would send them a picture of that, and I sent it to different people like Norman Goldman and Stephanie Miller, all these left-wing pundits. And so I didn't think anything of it, right? I just kept doing that. It was funny. And anyway, a few days later, actually it was probably a few weeks later, we get a knock at the door. And it was really weird because, we don't get a lot of people knocking at the door there. So anyway, nobody's there when we go outside. And it was strange. It put us on edge because that country is very dangerous, and especially if you're a political family there. Well, next thing we know, the next day the police are showing up, and I mean tons of police, like 20 or 30. And I'm thinking, what the heck, we're going to all get kidnapped or something. Next thing I know, there's 2 gringos walking out of a car, and I could tell right away they're CIA or FBI. But I didn't think anything like had happened. I thought, like, what, they might be here to talk about security or tell us, that we need to move or something, or they might be there to ask us to even try to give them information on something. I didn't know. So this guy from the FBI sits down and he starts reading my tweets. And it was so funny because he's like, "Did you say on this day that, you stupid leftist, I think you were such a cuck. Obama has left America worse off by every metric." And I'm like, oh yeah, that's mine. And so he was reading these tweets and it was hilarious. And then he finally shows me the picture. And he's like, "We got about 20 reports that you sent this picture of you with explosives." And I'm like, oh God. And so my lawyer's there and my wife's there and her brother-in-law is there, who's also a lawyer. And they just sort of casually remind the FBI that their family have all these connections there, that, they don't really want to push this issue. But the guys were cool. Actually, they agreed with me. They were like laughing at my memes. And the guy who was the Salvadorian police chief, he had one eye. I mean, this dude was scary. He had been shot a few times. He was just really scary dude. And he's laughing at it too. So anyway, these guys go back. But they tell me before they leave, they're like, "You might get some more visits from the FBI and you might have a problem with security at the airport." So when we leave, we get to the airport. I'm going through security. And the FBI and DHS come pick me up, and they bring me to this room, and we have the baby and my wife, and they ask us in this room, they're like, "Yeah, so what'd you do? Did you move drugs?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Are you connected to a terrorist group? You don't look Arab. I said, no, I memed somebody. And they start laughing. And it was nice because usually customs takes like 4 hours, but they just walked us right through. And that was great. So I get back home, and the FBI comes and checks up on us again. And that final FBI guy was probably a leftist, and he was a little more serious. And so I was really careful what I said to him. But, you know, back then that was scary. I mean, people in the patriot movement, I could tell you like 20 patriots who were getting visited by the FBI at that time. And not just for memeing or sending stuff like that. I mean, for nothing at all. You know, memeing's pretty minor, but when you're talking about people who just criticized Obama, who were getting visits from the FBI or CIA or Secret Service, yeah, that's scary. So that's what happened, guys. And I'll tell you the other story next time. So like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys around.